All right. It's that time. It's time for Beyond Sight and Sound. Let's do this.
Are you looking for a high-quality beach and sand scoop? Are you trying to take your hunting to the extreme? How about an American-based company that stands behind their product and everything they sell? Then check out our friends over at Xtreme Scoops. John has been making scoops for some time now and makes a quality beach and sand scoop to take your hunting to the next level. Xtreme Scoops recently released their new sand shredder that works great in the water and on the beach. And if you're a new Equinox user, you may want to check out his Surfmaster X3 that can trap those small targets you new Equinox users are finding out there. Xtreme Scoops' company approach is let's do it right. So do it right, buy it once, and go to the extreme. Xtremescoops.com. That's Xtreme Scoops.com. Caution. Please do not operate motor vehicles or power equipment while under the influence of this show. Listening to this show could cause side effects such as bouts of laughter, violent binges of cabin fever, and even dreams of silver and gold. Please be advised. Now that the fine print is out of the way, on with the show. All right, the fine print's out of the way, and it's time to roll with the show here. So moving on, we're back and we're live. You are listening to Beyond Sight and Sound, metal detecting and treasure hunting radio for all the really cool digging people out there. And when I look into the chat, good grief, I'm telling you what, you all are wired. Man, the chat just blew up. It's moving like a ticker tape here. I see Suki in, Jason, Barbecue Freak, Earl, Bob, Ohio Relic Hunter, Bucks Guy, Home Finder. The list is just rolling on here. I can't keep track of it all. Also, would like to take a moment and mention that please check out the description. We've got the links right there. The man with the plan, our dealer of choice here on the show, Chuck Smalley, Shooters and Prospectors on deck. His links in the description, as well as Xtreme Scoops. We're here on Wednesdays. We're here on Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern, always 8 p.m. Eastern. Why? Well, that's just when we throw the switch around here. I see Mark's dropping into the chat, Scott, a couple of others. I'm sure some of the California crowd will be showing up as well, so special shout out to today's Metal Detecting Finds Facebook group, who have very graciously been requesting that we share the link over there for the shows for the California listeners. Very cool. We always like people dropping in, people that are enjoying the show, Finding America. Welcome aboard. So, hopefully we've got all of the names there, been able to mention everyone that we could, that we noticed. If we've missed anyone, apologies. It happens. Things have been kind of hectic today.
Plus, rolling into that treatment, we're going to wait and see what happens. If we can't make the show Wednesday, we do have a little special treat set aside for everybody. A never-before-heard pre-recorded show from across the pond. That is going to be interesting if we have to roll with that Wednesday. If not, we will air that as soon as possible after Wednesday. We'll see what happens. But it just worked out well to do the pre-recorded thing because of the time zone difference. The gentleman that I was speaking with, he was 6 hours ahead of me. So live time, not so good for them over there, because that would have been 2 a.m. 2 a.m. I believe for him. Matter of fact, I was wore down just doing the recording. It's like jet lag. Oh, something else. But hey, either way, tonight, speaking of special things in store, what a treat. Man, the guy's busy, he's hard to track down, he's always up to something. But we actually got it done with a lot of help from Chuck. We finally got Matt Reeves to find some time where he could sit down and discuss things with us tonight about Montpelier, about archaeology, the asset that metal detectorists can be in terms of the archaeological toolkit, so to speak, because we do, many of you know, we've talked about it on the shows before, we can play a part. We can be helpful in that aspect to the archaeological community as long as it's done right. As long as it's done in the proper way. And whenever people ask, well, how is that way? What do I do? I'm not sure which direction to go. What are the steps that I should take or something? The first thing that usually gets mentioned here on Beyond Sight and Sound when people ask questions like that are, you need to look into Montpelier. It's the best program out there if you're wanting to learn about this sort of stuff. So tonight is a really special treat in a sense because I do see that Jesse's in the chat. I know he's talked a lot about Montpelier, not to mention he works a lot with Madison. Chuck has been out to Montpelier a number of times. Darwin has been out to Montpelier. Fred from New Jersey, our listener out there, he's been to Montpelier, and a number of others that I have talked to in the past. And the one thing that I have to say, the consistency of the good feedback is just bar none. I can't find anyone that has not a single bad remark about the Montpelier program, which tells us that they are definitely doing things right. They're setting the bar. They're leading by example. So enough of me running on. Many of you have already heard Matt speak in other venues or seen some videos that he's done. I know 2 years ago at the I&I event, there was a video playing there. So a lot of you are already familiar with him or somewhat familiar with him. If not, you picked a great show to catch tonight because you'll get to hear it directly from him. What better source to get it from? So let's get him in here then. How's it going, Matt? Thanks for sitting down with us tonight.
It's going great, Josh. It's wonderful to be on your show. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so if we know that you are very busy, and we did know, I'm going to say, I think the beginning of the month, that it was looking like it was probably going to be tonight, but we were setting on it just to make sure, because the schedules change. Things come up. That's just what happens with life. And I think I got the confirmation Thursday morning that we were a go for tonight. So I've been excited the last few days. Really looking forward to it.
Cool. Yeah, I just got in from North Carolina. I was down in Georgia. It's just outside of Morganton. They're looking at actually a 16th century Spanish fort site. The archaeology group down there, and actually saw a couple of friends who'd done metal detecting at Montpelier, so who are working with them as well.
Oh, wow. So at least those friends, you know they're going to be doing things the right way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Nice, definitely. Well, and I guess hopefully being down there in North Carolina, Florence has just went through. Hopefully things weren't too tore up for them.
They had some flooding. This is in, the western part of the state. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like on the coast where they had, the storm surge and the wind and everything all combined.
Oh, yeah, on the coast, that was bad.
Yeah, that was terrible. Hoping they're getting back on their feet.
Right. I know the outlying areas, though, it looked like, at least the last I had seen anyway, it looked like they were going to experience some heavy rainfall. So, not good. Not good at all. So I guess, to start out with, why don't we take a step back and let people know, for those who may not be aware, just who is Matt Reeves? How did you, what was the evolution, I guess you could say? Why archaeology, and how did you wind up with Montpelier?
It started actually just about 40 years ago. I was living in North Carolina, and in 1978, I found a arrowhead or a projectile point, and that put me on the path I never left for archaeology. And then through the years, got to learn about historical archaeology, working on sites of the historic period, the colonial and later periods, and just fell in love with that. And ended up doing work in Alexandria, Virginia, and then for the Park Service, and along the way got to meet a couple of metal detectorists, William Lay in particular, talked a lot about metal detecting. And then I went on to get my do my dissertation work down in Jamaica, looking at early 19th century Jamaican slave settlements, and ended up, after I finished my dissertation, working for Manassas, at Manassas Battlefield. And when I was there, Stephen Potter, who is the regional archaeologist at the time, he set me up with a couple of projects looking at areas the Park Service was going to put parking lots in, and there were key sites of the first and second battles of Manassas, and got the Northern Virginia Relic Hunters Club to help us out with those surveys. And nice. That, from then on, I was hooked in terms of what an effective tool metal detecting was, but most especially bringing in metal detectorists, the hobbyists, to help out with these projects. Because not only you get a group of folks that come in with incredible machines and have a lot of knowledge about how to use them for finding a whole range of artifacts, know a lot about the artifacts, but just to see how excited they were about the discovery process, it checked all the boxes. The scientific technique, the effectiveness of it, engaging with the public and really getting people involved in the discipline of archaeology, which is, if you can't get the public involved, get them enthused about what we're doing, there's not much point in doing what we do. So, right. And then from there it was, soon after I was at Manassas Battlefield for about 3 years, and then in 2000 is when I started at Montpelier. After, it was about, I'd been there about 6 months, and started talking with some local metal detectorists at the suggestion of the Northern Virginia Relic Hunters Club, because when they heard I was going to Montpelier, they started telling me about the Civil War camps that were here. And so linked up with some local metal detectorists who showed me where some of the sites were on the property, and then started to work with local detectorists in the area, especially Lance Crosby, who helped us with a whole bunch of surveys. And there's just so many things we've done here at Montpelier with local and regional and national metal detectorists. I'm not even sure where to begin. The one thing I did forget, first site that we found that I found at Montpelier was James Madison's childhood home called Mount Pleasant.
Nice.
And it was having some some of the folks from the Northern Virginia Relic Hunters Society come down and help us with that survey, especially Malcolm Price and John John. Oh my, I'm forgetting John's last name. He's gonna hit me if he sees me again. So, but yeah. So we've had some really good luck with working with metal detectorists, and the kind of results we've gotten are just fantastic. And of course, most recently has been some of the programs that we do where we have metal detectorists come out for a week and work with us on surveys, and have this be part of the programs we do on a regular basis. Have just been, the outreach we've been able to do with that has been fantastic.
Right.
So,
and how many years has this program with metal detectorists been going now, full scale like it is?
Well, with metal detecting in general, Montpelier, it's been going on with 18 years. With John Kendrick was the person who helped us along with Malcolm Price finding the original home. But in terms of the actual programs, we started those in 2012 with MindLab.
Right, so MindLab has been a big supporter of that.
They have been. So when we started those programs, Lance Crosby had been, who's a local metal detectorist, had been working with us for about 3 years, and he really helped us in terms of, getting those dialed in to really pique the interest of metal detectorists and make sure that we were speaking the same language for these week-long programs in terms of getting metal detectorists dialed into the kind of things we were looking for, which is, of course, all metal, because, we're looking for all artifacts at these sites.
Right,
and
every piece tells the story of the puzzle, basically.
Absolutely. And then when we started the programs in 2012, that's when we really started changing our survey techniques to use gridded metal detector surveys. For both finding the sites, using broader surveys on a 20-meter interval, or about surveying every plots that are about 1/10 of an acre in size to find all the sites on the 2,700 acres that make up Montpelier. And then once we find sites, to begin to define them with a smaller grid on a 10-foot interval that tells us where concentrations of artifacts are. And so combining the skills of metal detectorists with the science behind the archaeology, it really led to everybody having a hand in the discovery process, where, we as archaeologists organized the way to record the information and to systematize the discovery process and to show results. And then had the metal detectorists brought their machines and expertise on, finding the objects in the ground. And what we found is that, both groups, the archaeologists, my staff working with the metal detectorists and the metal detectorists themselves on each and every program, learned something new. And it was really a collaborative, co-creative process where one group, to get the full effect, everybody was pitching in with the teamwork to make it happen. And that, you do spend a week with a group doing that, and you've made friends for life. So I've got, at this point, metal detecting friends all over the country they've spent some really good times with here at Montpelier and really value as much as and more than the finds we've made, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can understand that. And it does speak volumes too, in the sense that it shows, I guess maybe for lack of a better term, the uneducated, that metal detectorists and archaeologists can in fact coexist and work hand in hand for the common goal. And it's beneficial for both sides of the platform, so to speak, because they learn something, the archaeological community learns something, and I would think it saves a lot of time, too, because rather than trying to learn and understand the machine, like you said, in the archaeological aspect, you guys have the scientific approach, you know, the proper documentation that things should be done, while the detectorists, they have the experience with the machines already, so you don't have to waste a lot of time necessarily learning or understanding the machine or training somebody in that aspect if you can get these people to come in this way. You just have to maybe mold them a little bit at the beginning, because you guys do some classes as well when they come down and spend the week at Montpelier.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's the really the key to the programs have been, you know, sharing information about what our goals are, and then really getting the metal detectorists who participate in the programs to know what we're trying to find and why we're trying to find it, because that helps them understand, you know, what they're looking for, not just in terms of the artifacts, but in terms of the information. And having we actually have metal detectorists on staff who began as part of the programs. Dennis Bajorkland started with us in 2014. He came on a program in the spring of 2014, and he never left. He's been metal detecting for full time with us since that time as a paid employee, and he has metal detected hundreds of acres at Montpelier and located dozens and dozens of sites. So, you know, the benefit, you know, goes beyond the programs, but you know, it's actually got us, you know, incredibly talented people like Dennis who are part of our staff today and, you know, make up the cadre of folks that greet metal detectorists when they arrive, which I think really, it makes it really exciting for metal detectorists who come on the program to have folks like Dennis and Lance there who they can talk to and begin to translate some of the questions they've got as metal detectorists, whereas if it was just archaeologists working, you know, on, you know, as part of the team, there might be some hesitancy at first. But what we found is any kind of hesitancy that metal detectorists have when they arrive on the program, it goes away after about 5 minutes of talking with everybody's just beginning to talk and sharing their love of finding history in the ground, because no matter how you look at it, that's how we're all approaching, you know, figuring out the past is from what's coming up out of the ground, metal detectorists and archaeologists.
Right, absolutely. It's still the same end effect, so to speak. You guys are still wanting to understand what's in the ground so that we can understand what was there, what is the past, where have we been, where are we going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine, too, that any sort of hesitancy probably fades very fast. I mean, word has spread far and wide that Montpelier will, you know, you guys receive detectorists very receptively, open-armed. And the fact of having some on staff full-time like that, I'm sure if any of them were much hesitant past a few minutes, that probably goes away immediately when they feel like they're talking to one of their own, so to speak.
Yeah. And I gotta say that the metal detectorists that have come on the program have been just exceptional people, because what I've always admired about all the folks that have come on the program, we've had, you know, well over 150 metal detectorists that have been on the program. To a person, they have always been excited about items that otherwise might not get most metal detectorists excited once they hear what you can do with it. And that's, of course, what everybody calls Montpelier gold, which are nails.
Right? Yeah,
so
I have
metal
heard.
Detectorists, when you think, go ahead.
I've heard a number of people will come back from Montpelier and say, "Wow, I learned so much about nails. You just don't realize how much a nail can tell you."
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're literally our gold. Without it, we would not be able to understand what Madison's plantation looked like if it wasn't for those, common items that are at every single site, whether it's a barn, a slave quarter that's occupied for a couple of years, even a fence. I mean, all of these things use nails, and of course, you can find them with metal detectors, and especially with skilled metal detectors. Because one thing that is always a challenge for folks that have never hunted in iron-rich soil is that, and that's what we get here in Orange, is this highly mineralized iron-rich soil.
Absolutely.
And so often you get these, your hot rocks. A lot of times will give the same signal as a small nail, and trying to ferret that out. That's where having folks like Dennis and Lance who help out on the programs really, the first day is everybody's dialing their machines in. So everybody's hearing the same sort of signals and reading them in the same way, so we get consistency of results. Because what we do, Josh, is try to basically use the metal detector as a remote sensing device. We don't dig every single hit. What we do is, grid the area off, the site off in 10-foot squares, and then do hit counts. And those hit counts per 10-foot square give you an idea of what the density is at the site, and then where the concentrations are. In some cases, like if it's a barn, that's going to tell you where that structure was. If it's a slave quarter, it might tell you where the building is, but it might also tell you where a trash deposit is. And then after that, how we're going to really recover this information is going in with our excavation units, where we can not only find the artifacts, but then also the foundations of the building, the post holes, all those things that go together to make us understand the complete picture of that site and even be able to reconstruct it.
Right, and that's when the real work begins for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know what the ratio is, but probably for, every hour of, metal detecting at a site, there's, definitely hundreds of hours, in excavation units and in the lab finding additional materials and processing them. And when metal detectorists come to Montpelier, what we always do is get them involved in the excavation units as well. In fact, I think it was our second season that a couple of the participants, said, boy, it'd be neat to be able to be in a unit. Can't we dig in a unit? And I said, well, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't think of that. So
right, what an idea.
Yeah, what an idea. So after that during that program, we put everybody in a unit for a day, and we do that with each and every program. And it just gives a metal detectorist the understanding of how, the strata, digging things by stratigraphic layer gives a whole another, set of information than just the artifacts themselves. It's finding these items in context, and whether or not you've got a ceramic or a button that's found inside a building or outside of a building, and then looking at the entire assemblage as a whole, not just the artifacts. And that's where, that experience gives metal detectorists the understanding of, in many cases, the importance of the site over just the individual artifact. And that's where you're able to figure out what people were doing at that site. And that's what, whenever you find something at a site, you always wonder, what did this come from? Was this from a building? What was the person doing when they lost this?
Right. Well, what's the story behind it?
Exactly. What's the story behind that artifact? That's what our science or discipline is all about, is trying to, extract every last bit of information out of, the site, the soils, the artifacts, the whole, bringing it all together. And
right.
The more we can know about a site before putting in the units, the better off we are. And that's where metal detecting comes in. And there's some cases where, especially like for a barn site, that, you don't have a lot of artifacts, but it's a small scatter of nails. In a lot of cases, the metal detecting is the way to figure out not only where the barn is, but even where the walls of that barn stood, and whether it burned, whether it decayed, just from natural causes, whether it was taken off the site. I mean, we're able to basically reconstruct the entire plantation with the aid of metal detecting and combined into the overall toolkit of archaeology.
Right, and I've often thought for quite some time, and a while back we did have another archaeologist on the show, Addison Kimmel, that I've thought for quite some time that really a detectorist, in a sense, maybe not in every scenario, but in a sense could help speed things up, because if they go in with the machine and they're able to drop a flag or a pinpoint on a GPS or something, maybe it kind of speeds up the process, where instead of just possibly randomly digging a test hole or something, it shows the concentration of the signals. It helps to kind of zone in on the hot spots of the areas, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah, Josh. It's a different way of looking for what the signature of the site is, because a lot of times what archaeologists will do are what are called shovel test pits, and
right.
Sometimes those are dug at 50-foot intervals to find a site, and once you find a site, a lot of times they'll be dug at 10-foot intervals, and those locate concentrations of artifacts, but aren't so good at locating like a highly diffused scatter. So like nails, for instance, for if you just got a barn and it's not an occupation site where there's ceramics and bone and glass, you're not going to pick that up using shovel test pits necessarily, but you will with metal detecting. And that's where, when I was at Manassas battlefield, we started using metal detecting for locating, scatter from battles from the Civil War. And that's where, similar to locating a barn, in shovel test pits, you wouldn't find that much. You wouldn't think there was much there. But when you turned a metal detector on the site, all of a sudden it opens up a whole new page on that site in terms of, being able to find artifacts that are very, scattered over the site, and being able to locate them and then map them in with the transit and have a pinpoint accurate, scatter map of what all those artifacts are across the site. All of a sudden you're starting to tell a whole different story about what happened there.
Absolutely, and I'm sure once you see that starting to form on the scatter map, all those hours of work that has went in, you start to see that picture, and it really is a sense of accomplishment, I would think. We've got a caller. Looks like we've got Mr. Chuck Smalley on with us.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Matt. How's it going?
Oh, good, Chuck. Good to hear your voice.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Good. I'm looking forward to be back out with you again, and it sounds like it's going to be kind of an exciting time working that area.
Yeah, we're going to be going back to the Overseer's house site that we worked for the last 2 seasons, and it's great to have Darwin's group back out there as well. From the we'll have a good group out there for you again, and it'll be a lot of fun, and looking forward to it. And we're going to be checking at that point. Dennis and I will probably be working with that 800 a little harder out there and see how well that does, of course. And then we got Lance. He's already working it out there, checking on that hot soil and see what he can squeak out of it. And then it'll get over to Dennis, and we'll be working with that. And I'm looking forward to that. And then getting back with the group out there. And Jill's looking forward to working in the lab again. Of course, the races are on too. So that's all part of it.
Right.
November's a busy time at Montpelier, that's for sure.
It's always busy. You never get a chance to sit still.
Now, with knowing that you've been out there a number of times yourself as well, Chuck, with having you and Matt both on here right now, maybe you two can kind of explain to us, for those who may not know what to expect, what can a person expect? What do they get to go through? Like if they, I assume there's some paperwork or reservation or whatnot that you need to make, and then you actually make the trip to Montpelier. If you were coming in as a first-time attendee, what can you expect?
Well, it's always an exciting thing to get to go out there. Number one, you get to work on hallowed ground. You are working the grounds of where our Constitution was written, and the people that passed through there, and we're tracking the history of that. We're rebuilding the site. We're helping our archaeologists out there basically draw a map of every building that they can pick out, every site, everything from slave quarters to the village area next to the Madison's home there. It was all mapped out by detecting. However they want you to work, you're going to go out and you're going to learn a lot. Now, I do tell a lot of people, expect the atmosphere of a learning curve. You're going to go out there, you're going to learn just what nails mean, just how much it means to them. You're saving them from walking around with a shovel, a bucket, and a screen, and you're going out there, instead of them doing bucket tests, you're going out and you're pitting thousands of hits, and they're mapping them. And then they bring in that, Matt, what was the name of that unit that they scan over and then draw the map of the site?
Oh, well, we use the laser transit for mapping in the hits.
Yep,
but,
and that was awesome to get to see that work.
Right.
Yeah,
We've actually got another caller that came in there too. 2394. You're on the air
Scott
with
Clark.
us.
Hey, this is Scott Clark, just saying hi to Matt.
Hey, Scott.
We go way back. We go way back, Matt and I just thought I would add my voice to the chorus of praise for the program at Montpelier. It certainly changed my whole detecting outlook, and everything that I did from that point forward was pretty much with archaeologists.
Nice. And I have heard many people after they've been at Montpelier, that's they find out that they've enjoyed it so much that that's just what they want to do. Just going out and searching for the old silver coin doesn't cut it.
That's correct. Well, when you get out there and you start learning from Matt, you take the classes, you get a chance to, you're going to work in the lab, and you're probably going to be learning how well a Dremel can grind old rust off iron. You're going to work with them. You're going to take classes from Matt. You're going to learn the nails. You're going to learn everywhere from a 3-hit to a 4-hit rose, where they come out, rosette, where they come out of, who's kiln or who's forged, which is just awesome when you find this stuff out. You'll be maybe finding things out of Jefferson's forge. That's cool. Yeah. And I was actually the one day 2 years ago.
When you come back from Montpelier, you're no longer happy to spread your finds out on the tailgate. You have a whole new appreciation for provenance and context.
And then on top of that, they just dig some of the most awesome stuff. And flat buttons, I've seen large sets found other coins, Confederate. Frank Juarez was out there with I&I last time, and he was working in one of the pits with the trowel, and you get to go learn that. And he actually he found Indian arrowhead.
Wow. And I've heard...
I find prehistoric finds all the time in Civil War battlefields in Kentucky. We find flint and arrowheads in the same hole when we're pulling a piece of lead or melted lead or mini ball out.
Wow.
There's so many arrowheads.
Scott is our poster child for, in a lot of ways, what the goal of our program is to get. Yep. Really, what we want to be able to do is get more metal detectorists working with archaeologists, and we've done how we do our programs now. Josh, is we always try to have metal detectorists who are working with other groups, not outside of Montpelier, come on the program, and then on that program work with metal detector hobbyists. And what has resulted from that is, folks have come away from the program, obviously have made new friends, but then they've called on, archaeologists who have been in the program have called on metal detectorists they met on the programs to come out and help them on their surveys. So like what Scott mentioned, after he came on the program, he went back to Kentucky and contacted some of the local archaeologists there and started working on surveys there. That's exactly what we want to do, because what we found is so many metal detectorists, when they come on the program, what they're interested in doing is, finding archaeologists in their area and figuring out how to replicate what we've done in their own home state, so they can, join, help out an archaeological team. And that's what we've really geared our programs more recently, to try to have more archaeologists and metal detectorists working together.
Oh, absolutely.
When I came back to Kentucky, I brought a lot of credibility. The program gave me that foot in the door, that bit of credibility,
right,
to say that I have some instinct for rigor and methodology. And after you do that, then a lot of the archaeologists who have previously been a little shy about it, they open up a little bit. And then after a first couple projects, then you're indispensable to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We currently have one going to happen right here through Jesse's efforts, and I've been working with Addison and Jesse, and we're going to start one over here on Whiteside County, and Jesse's really deep into it, and Addison will get into it, but we're waiting for fields to be picked, and we'll start working with the Addison and the University of Iowa.
That is going to be
cool.
a great time. I'm still looking forward to hearing about that.
Yep, it's
I just got back from 96, the Star Fork down in the Carolinas, and working with Stephen Smith at the University of North Carolina, and finding Revolutionary War stuff. And that only happened because of my long relationship with Montpelier and the knowledge of that program.
Nice.
It opens doors, that certificate that's issued to you for what you went through there, and if you want to work with them, you're exactly right. It gives you credibility. They don't think you're somebody out there with a shovel just digging holes.
Right, you're not.
I'll let you go. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later, guys. I'll let somebody else get on the call. Nice to talk to you, Matt.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks
Good
for
to
the
hear
call,
from you,
Scott.
Night, Scott.
Yeah, having a common language that, in metal detectorists return home, what a lot of times we'll do is we'll give them, if they're interested in working with archaeologists in their area, we'll give them the names of folks they could contact, and I'll contact those, archaeologist colleagues as well, to let them know that, this volunteer is familiar with, doing a gridded metal detector survey, and that, they understand that there's the process of recording that needs to take place, and really understand, what really surprises a lot of metal detectorists when they come in the program is just how enjoyable that process is, because all of a sudden, so many metal detectorists, when they're finding items, they're wondering about the patterns that you start to see when you start to find these objects in the ground. And by understanding how, a process by which that can be recorded, it just opens up a whole new set of information. And that's where, what makes metal detecting interesting. I mean, folks like buttons and coins, not because of anything intrinsic to them, except for there's a lot of information attached to those artifacts. So when you find a button or a coin, all of a sudden you get the date of when that coin or button was made. You can look it up in a book and find out kind of the information of where it was manufactured. And it's the same with, for example, finding a scatter of nails. All of a sudden you can get the date, but then when you start looking at the patterning, all of a sudden you can begin to tell, okay, this is a site dating to the early, 18 teens, based on analyzing the nails. It appears that this probably was a barn that burned and then was abandoned after that. And so all of a sudden you're opening up, a whole set of information about a site that you wouldn't otherwise know about. And that's where a lot of times this kind of process is, it's quite involved, and with working with a team, all of a sudden you can begin to pull the resources together to flesh out all this information. And that's what we really want to make, is that connection between, metal detectorists and archaeologists, and get more partnerships like we're doing, all across the U.S. and beyond.
Nice. And I'm sure, too, for many of us in the hobby, we would love to, be able to help the local archaeological projects and stuff like that go on. But for a lot of us out there, maybe we're just not sure, how do we get to that point? What are the steps to take? And Montpelier is a great gateway to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, in many ways, what we're trying to do is facilitate that process to get, more folks, to learn where, what groups are in their area they can work with, and also what's involved with it, so they can, go when they work with them, they'll be able to speak the right language as well.
Right, absolutely. I can see where that would be the case. Definitely.
Hey, Matt,
a great thing.
One of the people in the chat here has a question for you. Have you had any detectorists from Europe?
Or anywhere abroad, for that matter.
We have not had any folks from Europe be on the program. Who live in Europe and metal detect there and have come over. I'm trying to think. We have folks.
I don't think Mine Lab brought any.
No, Mine Lab did not. We've been contacted by metal detectorists from Europe about the systems we use. But we haven't had anyone from outside the U.S. Fly over and take part in the program and then go back and take to use those techniques elsewhere.
It would be interesting to see happen, though, based on just knowing how they are with their finds over there, to see if it would change the structure of things any. Would they do it differently? Would they continue the way that they are? Who knows? Yeah,
they've like the portable antiquity scheme in England is for registering finds is a great collaboration on a national level there, and that's something that we've looked at here is try to all that happens at the state level in the United States for reporting sites. But
right.
There's
go ahead.
Oh, but yeah, it's something we've thought about. But what we wanted to start with is getting archaeologists and metal detectorists working together as a team on site specific projects. Is start with that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Get a program in place, so to speak, streamline it, have everything moving smoothly, and then start to take it on to a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. What is it? I think you said it's a week that they spend out there normally. What sort of cost is that a detectorist is looking at if they would like to get involved? How do they go about doing that?
We do offer a range of scholarships for folks to come. The regular fee, we also, the programs we do, there are the metal detector programs. We do one of those per year, but most of the programs that we do are where people come out and actually spend a week excavating in a unit. So we've got we have an acronym for the programs that we do. It's called LEARN, LEARN. And the metal detecting is the L part of that. That's locate. And that's 1 or 2 programs a year. The excavate are the majority of the programs where people spend a week excavating a unit. The analysis, which is the A, is working in the lab. And then over the past 3 years, we developed the R, which is reconstruct, which is where people come out and learn how to actually build a log structure to represent some of the log buildings we found through metal detector surveys. And then the N is network, which metal detectorists do like nobody else, which is great. And for the majority of these programs, the fee is $1,000 for the week, and that includes the lodging and the fee for the program. And with the metal detecting programs, we've got such a great partnership with metal detectorists that we've made available scholarships for people to come. So some folks come, some metal detectorists are very generous. They'll pay the $1,000 that allows us to have the staff that work with folks. Others pay the housing, which is $300 if they can't pay the $1,000 fee. And then other folks, if they can't afford either of those eight, we'll give them a full scholarship, depending on the program.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's a range, what you can afford. And Darwin's group, along with Chuck, have been incredibly generous with us with, doing fundraisers for us that allow us to do the work we do. Montpelier is a nonprofit, meaning we've got to raise money, and the archaeology department is in many ways responsible. We're responsible for raising funds for the staff we've got. So without the staff, there'd be no way to do all the reporting and analysis that we do. And so that's why we have the fees. The fees for the program go right towards allowing us to have having the staff that we're able to do the analysis and make the maps and plan how to go from the finds from the metal detector survey to actually excavating the sites and then analyzing them and reconstructing them. So that whole process, you're part of, when you come in a program, one of our programs, you're part of a whole cycle where we go from locating the sites to actually and reconstructing them. And the one that, the inaugural one that Chuck was on in 2012, we had 2 or 3 metal detectorists that went through every single part of that program and ended up, helping with the reconstruction. And that's the field porter, the field slave porter that we've got those buildings reconstructed today. So when visitors come to the site, they can see the physical, you don't just see this in a report. You actually can walk out to the site and stand at the structure that was found with metal detecting, and then we're able to recover with the excavation units and figure out what that building was. So it's made a huge impact on what visitors see when they come to visit Montpelier, because of course Montpelier is open to the public, and people come out to visit the home of James Madison, which was a plantation farm, which had over 100 enslaved workers living and working on the property. So we've been able to represent a whole different side of Montpelier with these surveys. And I'm, just feel really honored to be, have so many folks want to come and help us out and rediscover what this place looked like in the 1820s. Without metal detecting, we would not have the depth of understanding of what this farm looked like. We would not have without these programs.
Wow.
It's an amazing thing to get to go be involved in. You learn a lot. You can step away from the program and continue in other programs in your locale, like Scott has done. You can, and we're doing here. I've been involved with 2 other programs myself, and helping people with detectors. These guys are coming forward now wanting their own detectors. I'm training them on detectors, and I continue to support this program that Matt has going out there as an independent dealer, and I will do so because I feel it's so important for us as metal detectors to get out there and learn this and move forward, such as myself, Jesse, Scott, and be able to work with archaeologists. What you don't know is I went out and I found an area that I was on our park district. I was one of the board members with that, and we had ID'd a mounds area, and I brought in the University of Illinois archaeologists, and we went out and ID'd it, and we have been able to save they're mound builders, and we preserved 7 sites right here in my hometown because
nice.
That's all, Chuck. And what you've been able to do with us, Chuck, is helping us with equipment and networking to bring more people in our program has been just.
And I will continue to do so. I play it out there, and I just can't wait to hear about nails again.
Well, we got more for you to find there, Chuck. They'll be waiting for you.
We do. And we'll go pinning for you. But it's just a great thing to continue to support it and the history of it, the way it turned over all the way through the Confederacy back and then in forward. It's unfettered ground, too. I mean, not a lot of it has been moved or touched, and that's what's so nice about it.
Oh, that is.
Yeah,
I would imagine that goes a long way to helping keep things in context.
Yes, almost all the sites on the property have never been plowed, Josh. Basically, when they were abandoned in the 1840s, they've been untouched since that time, which makes it, just the level of preservation is just mind-boggling. I don't know of another site like Montpelier in terms of having the number of acres and having an entire plantation that's preserved the way it is.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially in that aspect, it really is hallowed ground. You could be walking out there in the same path or footsteps that James Madison took.
And definitely the site we're working on right now, that's the case. So, and hopefully you can get out here, Josh. It'd be great to have you on one of the programs.
I've always heard good things about it, and really the project at Montpelier, it does so much as far as its contribution, in a sense, to show people that both sides of the communities, the archaeological community and the detecting community, can work together to help keep things in a good light, work towards a common good cause, and help keep things moving, preserve the history, document it, identify it.
Yeah, the more understanding we can have between the two communities, just the more opportunities there's going to be for, archaeologists to open up their projects to metal detectorists, and for metal detectorists to help out, like, Scott has done in Kentucky and Chuck has done in Illinois. It's just knowing the right person to contact when you find a site or you're interested in helping out on a project. It's
right.
Having that network of people you can contact, and that's what we try to provide on the programs. Is what the takeaway for us is after spending a week at Montpelier, if you want to join a project, we want to enable that process and get you linked up with people in the local area where you're from that you could work with.
Yeah, which is a really great help to that particular detectorist or group of detectorists, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and the archaeologists, because sometimes there'll be archaeologists that have, not used metal detecting as a survey technique or are interested. So the Fairfield Foundation with Dave Brown and Thane Harpool have worked with Curtis Myers, who came on a program back in 2015, I think it was. It was when we had the National Geographic show out, Chuck, and he's helped on a number of their projects since that time. So it's just created some great friendships, some great partnerships, and building that bridge between the two groups, which is wonderful.
Right. I never even really gave it a thought, but that makes complete sense, that not only are detectorists maybe not sure what steps to take to find archaeologists in their area to work with, but I'm sure it's the other way around as well, where archaeologists aren't real sure who to turn to in some cases.
Yeah. And to have, for an archaeologist to know that, the metal detectorist they'd bring in their project knows what, what's involved with recording and being willing to do it. That goes a long ways to, begin that conversation. And, one of the metal detectorists on our program will be able to arrive and talk about, gridded metal detector survey. And all of a sudden the archaeologist is like, all right, you're speaking my language. Let's try to work together, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
they may be more receptive. Go ahead.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you're one of those in the forefront, Matt, that has worked to break any barriers down, to bring the archaeologists together with detectorists. You had the foresight to understand that tool is going to help everybody. And I compliment you on that. And what you have done with what's going on at Montpelier has really opened up doors for a lot of people.
Yeah, archaeologists and metal detectorists alike.
That's right.
Yeah, both sides, absolutely. So,
and I've got to answer a question here, Paul. You asked what mound sites I worked on. The one just to the north of me up here is the Albany Mounds, and I've been a kind of a supporter of that. But we ID'd some unknown, well, I can't say unknown mounds. We found 3 that were unknown, just right here in Cordova, Illinois, just up on the bluffs. They always like to build on the bluffs to high ground. And we, as a park group, we bought that ground. It was unused ground up there, and now we've got paths, interpretive trails going through. In the past 4 years, we're just now, the state of Illinois is putting signs up, and it's part of this group that's up here in the north west corner along the Mississippi River.
Now, by signs, I'm assuming or guessing you're talking like historical markers?
Yes, as you walk the trail, it'll show how to spot that mound. And during the summertime when there's overgrowth, these mounds are sometimes tough to see. And then as you walk, there's 3 rather large ones they didn't know they had. They'd never been open. In the 30s, they sent archaeologists through here doing keys on the top, checking them. They knew what they were. They didn't really excavate them. Then the large group just to the north of me in Albany, there was many more, and we've lost so many along the river here with industry moving in and things like that, that we were able to save these 7 pretty good sized ones right in the back door of Cordova up here.
Right, especially along the river like that, you never know with flooding, erosion, different things of that nature, how many of them do get lost.
Yes, they do. And yes, Paul, there were some copper artifacts recovered up in Albany. These have not been opened deeply, and they've been untouched pretty much, other than just a few tested by the archaeological group that went through in the 30s, but we found several others they didn't know were there.
Wow.
And they have all been protected. That's all protected now.
Right. And you were saying, Matt?
I was going to say, there's so many metal detectorists that are out, looking for sites. And the more communication that happens between archaeologists and metal detectorists, the more kind of situations like Chuck is describing can happen, where all of a sudden a metal detectorist will come across a site and know there's some potential significance, and if they know who to talk to and who's willing to who will listen, all of a sudden these kind of sites can gain attention of the archaeology field, and something can be done to preserve them, because there's only a limited number of archaeologists out there, and having more metal detectorists understanding what's involved with site preservation, we can, begin to, work as more like a team rather than, working against each other to preserve this. Because most metal detectorists want to preserve sites. I mean, that's what, it's about. For most folks, it's about the history. Right. And that's where we've got common ground that we need to work towards, figuring out how to preserve these sites for the future. Because if they're all gone, we're not going to be able to, continue to learn about the past the way we can with preserving these for future excavations and digs.
Right, and that's definitely a sad thing. That's a lot of information lost, because many of us out there are very serious and passionate about the history that we search for. And I would think, too, that Montpelier not only would help as far as, detectorists working with archaeologists in their area, but that may even help some detectorists to get some open doors with, say, their local historical societies as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's, it's raising awareness of what sites are out there so that people know they need to be preserved, and how to go about preserving these sites in terms of, recording them in some cases, and letting the right people know that they're important. I mean, sometimes it's even just landowners. Landowners don't necessarily know what they've got on their land, and how easy it is in some cases to preserve a site. It doesn't mean you have to, keep your entire land from being developed, but just a small area. If it was set aside and preserved, these sites could be, be saved from just needless destruction.
Right, in terms of development, I'm assuming.
Yeah, development, sometimes even, just, with farming, there's a lot of, in some cases areas where people are starting to produce nurseries, which a nursery is a huge impact in rural areas on sites, because, you get deeper plowing, and then when the trees get dug up, you're basically digging these sites to subsoil and removing all the features and the artifact deposits.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
the layers are being
where,
moved and turned.
Yeah, or literally moved away. That's what I was witnessing in my visit down to North Carolina this weekend, is so many of the these Native American sites that are in some of these river valleys, they're all in nurseries today. And so without knowing where the sites are, and in a lot of cases metal detectorists have found these, the sites are being destroyed wholesale. And in a lot of cases, sites don't occupy a large part of that land, and they could be preserved. So it's and what archaeologists specialize in is how to go about, defining the site, but then also what processes can be used to preserve a site, in terms of, registering or helping the landowners to understand what can be done to avoid site impacts. And
right.
Again, that's where, now like what Chuck was just talking about is, working with a local university to let them know that you get these mound sites that are out there. It's a big country. There's a lot of area that, archaeologists don't get to cover, but in some cases, metal detectorists know so much better than any archaeological surveys that have or haven't happened in those areas.
Right, because in many cases, many of us are, in a sense, amateur historians ourselves, that we may have, especially out there in Illinois with what Chuck and Jesse and Addison have going on. Jesse is such a wealth of information on the topic that he is just such an asset that, man, to not tap these resources is a shame.
Yeah. I mean, when I started at Montpelier, archaeology had been happening at Montpelier for almost 18 years. And there were, when I started talking with metal detectorists, there were a whole set of sites that had never been recorded. But metal detectorists, there's an entire community that knew where these sites were. And so that's where we began to record all the Civil War encampments that were at Montpelier, and then we're able to get them preserved and get the metal detecting community to recognize that we're interested in preserving them, and that's where we've been able to open a whole new side of history of Montpelier that we wouldn't have without metal detectorists, and it's just a small model that can be applied elsewhere. And there's a lot of archaeologists and metal detectorists that are working together today, which is great. There's plenty of examples out there, but definitely.
I went down with Tim Garton and fought the good fight down in Carthage when a lady down there recovered a bullet that was embedded in a femur. And she reported it. And it was in an area that there had been multiple Civil War battles back and forth. And the archaeologists at the university, the head of the University of Missouri in Springfield, went livid and shut everything down. And we had to fight the good fight to get it opened back up and tell them, look, she made the right moves, contacted the right people, did the right thing by it, and she's not a bad person. And the mayor of the city invited all the detectorists in after we all worked on this months to get us back in there, and now there's a different understanding going with the university that, hey, they found something, and then they reported it as they should have and didn't walk away with it. And that's what we're hoping that the detecting community does.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I like that, too, fighting the good fight.
And there's lots of good examples like that, Chuck, where, metal detectorists and archaeologists have worked together for a successful project. And, the more of those kind of projects that happen, the less and less frequently there's going to be that negative interaction where, you know, an archaeologist is going to hear that there is a detectorist working on the site and automatically assume the worst. It's going to be more the case where, oh, there's a metal detectorist reporting this. Let's, you know, they've got some great information they can share. Let's bring them in. And that's where, you know, what we're excited about with our program is we can do this at Montpelier on a national level with having these, you know, week-long residential programs. And we're trying to get more archaeologists to come on the program to take part in this process, you know, this collaborative work, so that they can go home and, you know, get folks from Illinois, archaeologists from Illinois to come out on the program, and then they've got a whole, you know, army of people they could call on with you, Chuck. So, you know,
that's right. That's right.
It's finding folks that want to start these programs in their own state and area, both archaeologists and metal detectorists, and that's where we can get some things happening. So.
Right, and encourage them to take it back to their area and start to incorporate these concepts and ideas. Because in the time of running the show, I've been able to talk and interact with a number of people, and I've seen myself firsthand. There's a lot of misconceptions out there on both sides of the fence. And like with Montpelier, a program like that goes a long way in educating those that don't know any better and don't realize the misconception, to educate them, to let them know, hey, you know, there's no sense in fighting back and forth about it. Let's just work together and get it done.
Correct.
Absolutely. And looking at the feed here, I'm going to probably hop off soon, because I want to answer a lot of the questions. I'll answer them over email, or if I can log in, I'll try to answer them over the feed as well. But looks like I had a lot of people writing in. So
nice.
Yeah,
which does bring up
questions rolling up here. I was going to answer Becky Mackey about Tim Garton. Tim came out to the inaugural hunt with Montpelier, and I got to know Tim 2 years before that, fighting that good fight ahead of time, and he is a good guy, Becky. I've been honored to get to know him and many others in the detecting community all through the country that have worked with Matt and worked with Montpelier and worked with other archaeologists, and keeping the word out that we're not the bad guy out there. We want to work with you. They want to work with us, but they're always a little hesitant at first, and then when they find that they can work with us, such as Scott was talking about earlier, we're not that bad a group. We're a pretty good group of people. We're willing to give our time and money and travel and that to them, and get stuff into the museums. And some of the finds you make, I found the first trip out there, I actually dug a Confederate canteen. It was reburied. I had Matt come over and identify it, and we reburied it because it was so fragile it would not live. It would not survive.
Wow.
Yeah, I see a whole bunch of people giving Tim a shout out, so.
Yeah, nice. And you're right, Chuck. Matt's name does stretch far and wide when people bring up the topic of archaeology and metal detecting working hand in hand. So we definitely appreciate you very much for what you do, Matt, and for taking the time to sit down here with us tonight. But before you jump out of here, let people know how they can get in contact with you if they do have some questions, maybe an email they can reach you at or anything like that. And also, like Chuck had mentioned, and yourself, about the different fundraising events that go on, maybe there's a spot that people can find out about those as well if they would like to help, or even to spread the word, because I'm sure whenever the I&I group is doing anything like that in their area, Chuck can always let me know and we can put it out on the show.
Yeah, people email us at dig@montpelier.org. So it's literally dig at Montpelier.org, and we can send you more information and put you on our newsletter list and help you figure out what if you want to come on a program or help us out, get you linked up with us in that way. So we're always checking the Dig at Montpelier email and making all kinds of good friends and contacts.
Nice. Very good. And they can find out the information about the fundraisers there as well, I would assume.
Yes, absolutely. So
nice. Okay. Well, I thank you very much for the time tonight, Matt. You have been an absolute pleasure. I'll let you go ahead and get out of there. That way, if you try to log into the chat, maybe you can answer some questions, or maybe even, I don't know, tomorrow morning may be a busy morning with emails.
That's true. It was wonderful being on the program, Josh. It was an honor to be on your program, and great having you here as well, Chuck. So I'll bid you all good night.
Looking forward to seeing you again, Matt. We've got some things we've been working on here, and we'll get together while we're out there and have a good time and see how many more nails we can dig up.
We always do. Nails and good times.
We always do, my good friend. You take care, please.
Okay. Good night, you two.
Good night, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. And I guess while we're giving Matt a few minutes in the chat there, Chuck, maybe you can tell people once again what they can expect or why you would even recommend. Why is Montpelier such an important thing to those of us in the hobby? Because it does play an integral part.
That's right. It's broken walls down. It continues to do so. And between the archaeologists and the detectorists. And the detectorists are viewed, well, I've actually heard them say this, we're grave robbers. No, we're not grave robbers.
Right, we're looting and pillaging.
Yes, right. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And we've proven that time and time again, all the way through archaeology and law enforcement, returning lost items, helping people out. We're actually a very good group of people, but we got to sell that. We got to keep selling it. And the one way to do it is get involved in a program like this. Go out and learn. Get a certificate of digging from Montpelier, and then continue some schooling with it and work with people. It's a great thing to go do. I mean, but beyond that, you're getting to detect a site that is truly United States hallowed ground. I mean.
How does it get any better than that?
You can't beat it.
Right.
You
exactly.
Can't beat it. I've been there. The Marine Corps comes out on Madison's birthday every year and honors him. He is the president of the choice to honor by the United States Marines. And I was witness to that the second time I was out. It's awesome.
I was going to say that would have to be a great experience just on its own, just to be able to see that when they come out.
Right. And I've met some great people from all over the country, Van Boone and Tim Garton and Jerry McMullen and some great detectorists and relic hunters, and get to go down and see people in orange that have just great things to say about Matt and Montpelier and the things you learn out there. Lance Crosby and Dennis Borkland and just on it goes. And you get to connect with these people, learn from these people. They learn from you too. I mean, it's a great thing to be involved with, and you'll come away with a deeper understanding of our country, Madison, what archaeologists do, what you could do to help them, what they could do to help you. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and I highly recommend it. I, through Darwin and myself, we got the first group out there. Now we have another group going out this year. Everybody comes back with a greater understanding of what the whole picture is for what we're doing on Saving History.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I've talked to a number of people that when they come back from Montpelier, not only do they have a new respect for the archaeological community and history in general, but many of them seem to say they've found a new respect for nails as well.
Yes, you do. But I went out the one year and worked a week with Lance. We were trying to identify the original road going into the front of Montpelier where the buggies went, because the roads have changed. But we found an area. I found it's like a rosette for the side of a barouche, and it was 4 oak leaves that were cast iron, and they and that went to the museum. That may have been either off of Madison's barouche or one of those fancy carriages, and that went to the museum. And I found flat buttons and all kinds of different things out there, and every dig is exciting, but I'm going to tell everybody, if you have any hopes of going out there or want to go out there, you have to have a piece of equipment that can cut that type of soil out there. You've got to know your equipment before you go out there a little bit. Just a $250 to $500 detector doesn't always work on that ground. You've got to have a fairly good detector. I will recommend that to them. You have to have a good working knowledge of your detector when you go out there. It's a little more than just going out to a local park and looking for stuff, or down into the neighborhood. And you work. I mean, you get out there and you learn how they grid off an area. You're working directly with an archaeologist who's logging every spot that you mark, and every dig you do, what may have been there, and they tag it, they bag it, they leave it there, and you move on, and you do those grids. You're saving them thousands of hours of work with your efforts with a detector. Trust me, you are. And then if it's something that they decide to open up and do a full dig on, you can go back and work with them on it. And during that week, you'll get to go into the current digs that are going on and work with them. They'll teach you how they do that. And then you get the class on nails. You get classes on conservation of metals. You get classes on how slavery interacted within the United States and what went on there. And you go down to the Confederate camps, where there's a full recreation of a Confederate camp that the local club has built out there, and the huts are up just as they would have been during the Civil War. I mean, it just goes on, and just amazing stuff. Every time I go back, I learn more.
And you've been there a number of times. In those times that you've been there, do you see maybe a preference of machine that people are showing up with?
Well, yes, I see a lot of the MyLab CTXs, E-Trax, and a lot of pulse induction units that people that may know how to use them. I see a few machines that I've taken machines out from different manufacturers, and then Lance and I have wandered off when we get time alone, and actually units that never made market or were on their way to market to test them in those soils, and some failed miserably, and others did very well, and now are on the market today.
Well, and that makes sense, because like you said, not all machines are going to perform the same in that hot, mineralized soil like that. And hopefully soon, with you going out again, we'll hear much more about how the Equinox users may perform out there.
There's one of them on the ground out there through me right now, and Lance and Dennis are working with it, and I'm expecting some feedback, and then when I get out there, I'll have a couple of them. I am donating one to the Montpelier, and cool. Continue to work on keeping the program going, and I'm a sustaining member of the Montpelier organization. I believe in it that much.
Nice, definitely. Well, that's great to hear, and hopefully we hear good reports of how the Equinox performs out there in the mineralized ground, and how that may possibly be a good machine of choice for people who are thinking of attending the Montpelier program. Right.
Well, they've been looking for a good mid-range, and I've seen The AT Pros do pretty good. I've seen Deus do okay. I've seen some failures in certain other machines. So, they make recommendations, and the problem is when Detectors gets out there, a lot of them don't have they have some spare PI units, but if they never run a PI, they spend a lot of time, the Detectors do.
That's a big learning curve right there.
It's a big learning curve. Try to get them onto something that they can work with. And then they have to go back. If they haven't worked the site well enough, the guys go back to the grids and rework to find the missed stuff. So, it's very important because we've actually, by the work on the grid, you can actually, after they scan that, they'll map it. You can read an entire building from that. You can read the nails that were down because these buildings they just collapsed. I mean, they rotted away. And there's been some that they probably burnt, things like that. But for the most part, like Matt was explaining to everybody, that ground was pretty much unfettered. It hadn't been moved. Things were just walked away from and let fall.
Wow. And for the price point of the Equinox, that would be a very attainable option. And very cool for you to donate one to Montpelier that they can see for themselves. Maybe they'll be in contact for a few more.
Well, that's neither here nor there. I just what we're trying to find is a unit that most everybody can afford, that will work out there and work well enough that they can go out and work with them. And if they don't, then the site has one or two available for people if they brought a machine that's not working well to use.
Right. And I think they may have found it with the Equinox.
Man, let's hope so. Let's see what's going on with it. I know I'm seeing a lot of things and good reports from all over out there.
Absolutely. Great to hear. Great to hear. Well, I guess we can probably think about getting on out of here then. And I guess before we go, thank you as well, Chuck. Definitely a big proponent and part in tonight's show, getting things lined up. Great guest.
Yep. And Scott Clark thinks the Deus high frequency might do well. I've seen people with the Deus out there before the high freak, and they did okay. I don't know what the high frequency is going to do, and I may find out while I'm out there. We'll see. And we'll test several different machines.
Nice. And I'm sure we'll get to hear about that here when you've got time sometime after you get back. We always enjoy hearing about your adventures and definitely what's going on at Montpelier. I know it's been a very brought up topic on the show here in the past, so it was definitely nice to hear it directly from Matt tonight as well. Right.
So anyway, and I get to go out there and take my green staff button and get to wear it again. He won't let me take it home. So anyway, everybody have a great night, and that was good of Matt to come on. I tried to get Dennis to call in and chime in, but he said that's kind of out of his comfort level. I'm still working on Dennis to come on, and maybe I can get Lance to come on, and we'll have some more chats about this on some of the cool stuff they found out there.
All right.
Everybody have a good night.
Thanks for the call, Chuck. We'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Wow. Definitely a very, very interesting topic. We hope that you all enjoyed the show, and we thank Matt once again for taking the time to be on with us, and Chuck as well for his part. Like I said at the beginning of the show, definitely the man with the plan, the dealer of choice. The shooters and prospectors are who we like to plug here on the show. Great to deal with. I've dealt with Chuck on a number of occasions. As a matter of fact, I ran into someone in the field the other day that was thinking about getting into the hobby and made sure to hand him my business card because it has on the backside Chuck's Shooters and Prospectors and his contact number as well. Told him, said, here you go. Perfect way to get you set up. It's got the link for the show. It's got my contact number. Flip the card over. It's got Shooters and Prospectors and their phone number. You're all good to go. All you got to do is get yourself a machine and enjoy the lifetime of adventure that's ahead of you. So thanks to Matt. Thanks to Chuck. And thanks to Scott for calling in as well. Sounds very familiar. I think I've seen a number of his posts somewhere. I do believe there's a website out there and a Facebook page. Very cool to talk to him, though, as well. Definitely. Another very passionate, very informed, and serious hunter there. You can tell. So thanks to everyone for dropping into the chat tonight, joining in on the show. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and if you did, you can throw us a like right here on Spreaker. You can follow us on iTunes, iHeart, Facebook, and many of the wonderful groups out there. Don't forget, obviously, Thursday night, Relics Radio. Tuesdays, we've got History Seekers. Mondays, we've got Relic Roundup and Hardcore Metal Detecting on Thursdays and Saturdays. And then, obviously, we're here on Wednesdays and Sundays. So, until the next time, I think we're going to get on out of here. But, man, what a show. What a show. Definitely liked hearing about Montpelier tonight, and hopefully you all did as well. Something to think about. So we're going to roll on out of here. We'll see you on the pages. Have a wonderful evening, folks.